So as you know, isn't this a conundrum for astrologers? Typically, when we're trying to rectify a chart, we know the date and the location, but not the time. With Bitcoin, we know the date, we know the time down to the seconds. January 3, 2009, 6:15:05 p.m. UTC. We have no idea what the location is because the anonymous founder, Satoshi Nakamoto, whether that's a person or a group or whatever, we have no idea where that is, where he or they or she was. Now for price data, similarly, I use BTC USD. It's a 24/7 market that runs from midnight to midnight UTC. For price charts, I've decided to use 12 noon, midday, for price horoscopes in Greenwich, just to make it easy. The CME group says that the most active hour during the trading day is 3 to 4 p.m. London time, and some data sources that you can use for price data, coinmarketcap.com, which runs 24/7 charts and prices from several different exchanges, barchart.com. I'm used to using that for the other markets I take a look at, so I still do. Its downside is that it runs only 5-day-a-week charts, Monday through Friday, not Sunday to Sunday. And then the CME group calculates what they call reference rates based on a collection of inputs from several different exchanges. So, and I wanted to look at two different charts. And this is all based on how financial astrologers have been looking at the stock market for decades. And I've applied this to looking at the commodity markets, although in the commodity markets, there's really only a first trade chart. But for this, I think there's two different ones. I think we have to look at where was the launch chart for the Genesis block, and then take a look at the first trade block, which was 9 days later. So the launch chart, the Genesis block for Bitcoin, I think is akin to a stock and corporation chart. I think it signifies the start of the blockchain. And so I expect to see connections to that chart, events that shape fundamentally the future of Bitcoin. New exchanges, new brokers coming on, new regulations, new product launches, things like that. For the first trade chart, the first trade block was number 170. It was on January 12, 2009 at 3:30:25 a.m. UTC. And that was a 50 Bitcoin transaction from Satoshi to a fellow named Hal Finney. Now, it was probably worth a penny then. At $40,000 today, where Bitcoin is, those 50 Bitcoin would be worth $2 billion. So anyway, first trade block, I think is going to be more useful for watching the market. Is Bitcoin going to make a high or a low? And the events that shape it are not necessarily connected to highs and lows, but actually they often have been. But I think what I've discovered is that one, the first trade block chart is important, and two, it's more sensitive to price than the launch chart. So I have 5 candidates. And just to remind you that all 5 of these charts have the same planet positions and the same aspects between those planets. They all have the sun at 13 Capricorn. They all have the moon at 04 Aries. They all have the rest of these planets, as you see on the screen here. And interesting, isn't it, that Mercury is exalted, Venus is exalted, and Mars is exalted. Mars also is out of bounds. So Mars is and aspect-wise, Mars is conjunct Sun and Pluto for a nice Capricorn stellium. Mercury is conjunct Jupiter. Saturn's opposite Uranus. The Moon is square Mars and Pluto, sextile Mercury, and Venus is in a wide conjunction with Neptune. It's a Capricorn chart, and Saturn is the chart dispositor, so it's very Capricorn-like. Mercury is the strongest planet in the chart. It also is conjunct the fixed star Altair, which delivers boldness and determination. And Mercury and Saturn are in mutual reception. So it puts real emphasis on both Mercury and Saturn, but I think in particular Mercury, as it should, because I think Mercury represents what Bitcoin is, an electronic means of transactions. So here's the first one, London, which would have been January 3, 6:15:05 p.m. And why London? Because it's a world-leading financial center. And particularly because embedded in that first Genesis block was a reference to a headline that was in the Times of London that day that said, Chancellor on brink of second bailout for the banks, for banks. So certainly whoever launched Bitcoin was watching the London papers, London online information, and put this in the code. The ascendant, and here, let me back up and say one more thing. So all 5 of these charts have the same planets, the same aspects. The only thing that differs among them are the angles. And so to help figure out which one might be the location, we really have to concentrate on the angles. So for London, the ascendant is at 08 Leo, the MC is at 18 Aries. Mercury is 6 degrees applying to the descendant, and this would have made a nice, convenient early evening launch. Personally, I looked at that and I thought, Dublin. I like Dublin. It's a little edgier than London in terms of its financial savvy. I liked that Mercury at 2 degrees Aquarius was only 3 degrees away from the descendant. I just like Dublin because Mercury was closer to the descendant. The ascendant here is 05 Leo with the MC at 11 Aries. Also, the moon is applying to the MC by 7 degrees. Same deal, early evening launch. And the Republic of Ireland's natal Jupiter is conjunct Bitcoin's Mercury. So I thought that was interesting. Now, Singapore. I like Singapore too. I think it seems like a logical potential choice. Same deal. It's kind of a cutting edge world financial center. There was a solar eclipse just a couple weeks later. The ascendant is in 03 Scorpio, and once again, this is conjunct my moon. So perhaps this is why also I like this one. The MC at 28 Cancer is at the Yod apex between Venus and Pluto. Jupiter is close to the IC and Mercury, both separating a little bit. Now this would have been the next day, kind of a night owl time for launch. But once again, okay, I'm sure you all have IT geeks who love to work in the middle of the night. That doesn't seem odd to me. Tokyo, same part of the world, financial center. And here, Satoshi Nakamoto. It just sounds Japanese. So let's throw Tokyo into it. Tokyo has an ascendant at 25 Scorpio with the MC at 05 Virgo. Same deal, it's middle of the night, 3:15:05 a.m. on January 4th. Venus is 5 degrees applying to the IC, and once again, there's a Yod at the MC with Moon and Mercury. Capricorn stellium, all 4 of those planets are in the second house of money in the Tokyo chart. So I think that seems reasonable.